Whenever I start to diagnose an issue that somebody is having, the first thing I do is examine to see if their sketches are fully defined. And I can tell that if it has a thumbtack here, then I see that that sketch is fully defined. I see that sketch number 3 isn't fully defined, so if I edit that sketch and I start dragging the geometry, I see that in this case it was as simple as missing a horizontal constraint on that sketch, and that fully defines that sketch. So you could accidentally move things around out of position if you don't fully define your sketch. If I look at this one, I see the same thing, and it's really the cardinal sin if the first sketch isn't fully defined. The first sketch should always be fully defined. So I'm going to edit that sketch, and I'm going to look at it, and watch out when you create a polygon. Fusion doesn't automatically put a horizontal or vertical constraint on one of the edges. You have to do that, and then I need a dimension from side to side, and when I put this dimension on, it comes to an oddball number. So I'm going to undo that. Maybe I accidentally changed the size of it, so I'm going to go back to where I started at, and so we'll edit that sketch again, and I will dimension this distance from side to side, and so I see that it is perfect dimension there, but it has to be specified. And actually I see that it's also up here, so I shouldn't really need that dimension. So let's see if I can find out why I had to put that second dimension in there. So again, I'll put in the vertical constraint on this line, and I don't see a tangent between this line and this arc anywhere. And so let's add that tangent between this line and this circle, and now it turns dark. It's all fully defined. And so go through and fully define your sketches so that you don't have any errors introduced in that fashion. I see this white dot here. If I just drag this white dot, drop it over here onto the origin, and now that sketch is fully defined. I'm going to go to this part, and we'll look at this one in a little bit more detail. So I like to just drag the timeline back and look at things sketch by sketch. And so I'm going to edit that sketch, and I see, first of all, I see a lot of repeated dimensions. You in general shouldn't have repeated dimension. So if I want these two arcs to be 4 millimeters, I will make them equal. And I see that there's also an arc down here that's 4 millimeters, and here. Now if I might edit those separately, then I'll put separate dimensions on them, but let's assume that the design intent is for all of those arcs to be 4 millimeters. So if I do an equal constraint between this arc and this arc, an equal between this arc and this arc, equal between this arc and this arc, then if I want to make a change, I only need to make it one place. I don't need to make it every other place. And actually I see two more here, so let's delete those two dimensions, and I'll do equal again. So I'll do equal between this one and this one, and I'll do equal between this one and this one. And I see that this radius 1 is in here twice. Let's get rid of one of those, and I'll do equal. And so I'm going to make this arc equal to this arc, and now I just need to change it. If I want to change it, say to 2 millimeters, I only need to change it in one location. I assume that these arcs are all concentric to this arc, so I'm going to do a concentric between this arc and this arc. And okay, so it tells me that I don't need that. I'll do it between this one and this one, this one and this one. Okay, so it looks like that is okay. I notice there's the dimension missing from here to here. It must have been in here at one time. I don't know. How did you get a perfect distance of 20 without putting a dimension in? Hopefully you're not eyeballing on the grid to put in your dimensions. Alright, so let's see. let's start dragging. This circle should be at the, it looks like the design intent was for it to be at the origin. So let's try dragging that. And so, whenever something doesn't fully constrain, drag the geometry, and it should be obvious then where you're missing a constraint. So I'm just going to drag this and drop that back there, but I see again that it doesn't fully constrain. I'll try dragging it, and there's a line here. Let's try to actually there's another line. Were there two lines over top of each other? It looks like you had two lines that were over top of each other. I'm not sure what the purpose of the extra line was, so I'll just delete it, and then I'll do a coincident between this point and the origin. Now, actually, I notice oh, there's another line in there. You got lines over top of lines that can cause trouble. So I'll do coincident again between here and here. And actually, when I did that, I saw that it was actually I had to do it twice because there was actually another duplicate in there somewhere. So watch out about putting in duplicate geometry. That'll cause trouble. It looks like the design intent was obvious for this to be symmetrical, so I'll do a symmetrical constraint between this line and this line and this line, and so that moved that up, and then it looks like it was the intention for this line to go through the center, so I'm going to do coincident of this line through the origin. Now actually that might not have been the design intent, so I don't know what your design intent was there. You will have to fully define your design intent. It looks like maybe these two arcs were supposed to be concentric, so again I'll add that concentric if that was the design intent. Put those two arcs concentric, and it doesn't seem to want to do that. One thing I suggest you do too is, as you're going through, put these constraints in as you go. If you wait until the end, you can get into some situations where it's really difficult to find what the issue is. I'm going to make these two parallel, make those two parallel. I'm going to, let's see, what do I want to do next? Let's put in an angle dimension in here, so the angle between here and here, I'm going to assume that's supposed to be 160, and let's see, do we have a dimension between here and here anywhere? And okay, so we don't need that one. It's defined somewhere else. I haven't seen where yet. Let's see if now, I'm still not sure that you didn't intend for this line to go through the center of that arc, but I don't know. You have to dimension this as you go along. So I'm going to dimension the height from here to here, if I can get it to put it in here. I don't know what I did. Dimension the height from here to here, and I'm going to assume that's supposed to be 12. And so now that turns dark. As far as the rest of it would just be guessing on my part. Actually, there is was this originally up here? I don't recall. I'll do a coincident of this arc up here to that point. Now that turns black, and so this remaining geometry, you'll have to put in the dimensions that you intended, but fully define your sketch. Also, I have a point hanging off over here. I can drag that point and just snap it here to that edge. What is this point right here? I don't know what that point is right there. Left over from some geometry earlier, a point over here, and so that cleans it up pretty good. Except for where did you intend this geometry to be at? You need to fully define that.